Well, a message allegedly posted to Facebook by Alec Minassian moments before he began driving the van he'd allegedly used to kill 10 people is now shining a light on an online community known as Incels. This is shorthand for involuntarily celibate. The end of the post reads this: "We will overthrow all the Chads and the Stacys, terms that incels have given to attractive men and women." They also say, "All hail the supreme gentleman, Elliot Rodger." This is, of course, in reference to a California man who killed 6 people during a shooting rampage. That happened back in 2014. For more on this community of incels, we're joined by the University of Toronto sociology professor, Judith Taylor. Good to have you in here this morning.
Thanks for having me.
We know this is a community of men that gather, mostly men that gather online. They're a digital community. Some groups have as many as 40,000 members, other 17, but in the thousands. We've seen violence before. We just mentioned with Elliot Rodger. So where does that line cross from going to commiserate, to be frustrated, to crossing over into violence?
It's a great question. I mean, this is a very amorphous community. There are some people who are there just to talk about loneliness. There are other people there who are there to encourage violence and who write extremely graphic messages about how to kill women, about how to have sex with them after killing them. This is no funny business, full of threats and encouragement, and also role modeling, talking about young men who have killed in the past and encouraging others to follow suit.
We should explain for our viewers who may not know, where did the term Chad and Stacey come from?
I'm actually not sure of the derivation of that. The interesting thing is Incel came from a Canadian woman in 1993 who wanted to create a kind of therapeutic community for people who were just lonely and whose social lives didn't really look the way they expected them to look. And that got taken up in much different ways. The vocabulary of Chads and Stacys, I think, shows the general alienation of this group. They don't like anyone who appears to be quote-unquote normal and who seems to be socially successful. But the other problem is that they don't like that in modern society, romantic love is by choice. And they kind of think wistfully back to a time when people were assigned spouses so that what they call alpha males wouldn't get all of the attractive women, leaving the beta males, as they call themselves, by themselves.
Right, and so Stacey and Chad refer to people who are, sometimes they call them normies, who are attractive, successful, and obviously in relationships with one another.
Right.
Now that we have more of an idea of this community that exists, that we see that there is talk towards violence, how do we intercept that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really important to look at it, to aggregate these cases. When we look at the young man who made the killings in Quebec City at the mosque, when we look at the 2015 killing at a community college in Oregon, the profiles are very, very similar.
What do you see in the profiles?
Yeah, so lonely men who have a kind of mix of racism in the 2015 shooting, very angry at black men, in the mosque shooting, angry at immigrants, and then a real deep misogyny and a kind of militaristic language, and also men who've tried to join the military or a military group and not succeeded at that.
What is it about this community where you take, loneliness and rejection exists for everyone in society, but what places them here?
Right. It's interesting because a very thoughtful intern at the basement at one of these studios said to me, I wasn't successful in high school, but I just thought I have to wait and life will get better. I think most people experience their dips in their social life or feeling rejected and just feel like life is going to get better. When you have a social media community that builds a whole language and culture around that rejection and a kind of feeling of superiority and revolution about that, that's what's scary. And so they actually in this community identify themselves as NEETs. No education, no employment, no training. And I think that's the biggest thing for parents to look at. If your child is struggling, if they have no friends, if they have no educational success, if they're not moving into employment, and they're spending all of their time on social media, I don't care how old they are, you have to intervene.
Judith, thanks for being here this morning.